Hello, my name is Brian Howell. I'm one of the candidate recruiters here at Recruit Military. I've been helping veterans prepare for interviews and find positions for over 12 years. Today, we're going to talk about interview success preparation and the different things you need to do to prepare for an interview. Here is an overview of what we'll be talking about: interview strategies, initial questions, common tough questions, how to answer them, questions you ask the interviewer during that portion of the interview, and then closing the interview properly to get maximum value out of the interview. Here are several interview strategies I think will be very helpful for you, and some of the easiest ones are just making sure you research the company and the interviewer. You'd be surprised how many times someone doesn't know all the ins and out of what a company does, and when they're asked, "Hey, what do you think about us and what do we do?" they don't know how to answer that. So at a minimum, make sure you know who the company is, what they do, and a little bit of maybe why you enjoy the company. Additionally, it's very important to know who your interviewer is. And I say this because depending on who the interviewer is, you know the strategy to best involve them in the process. You know what makes them tick, where their interests lie. So if they're human resources, you might ask them a lot different questions than you would someone as an operations manager, a plant manager, an engineer, a salesperson, so on and so forth. So knowing the company and the interviewer is going to best prepare you for having the most engaging conversation. The ambush approach is an approach where at the very beginning of a conversation, whether meeting in person or over the phone, you have an initial exchange. "Hi, this is Brian. You must be Bill. Hey, Bill, good to see you. Yeah, I'm Brian. Thanks for having me out." Well, instead of having that quick little exchange, I always encourage folks to have a 10-second commercial there. So, "Hey Brian, how are you doing?" "Hey Bill, I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. Really happy to talk to you about the ABC company. I really think I've got a great background in this, that, and the other that you need, and appreciate you taking the time to talk to me." You interject energy and excitement right away, and that is so critical in keeping energy high throughout the interview. By doing this at the beginning, you set the tone, you set the bar. So try to do that. Another huge strategy is what I like to call the do the job in the interview approach. No matter what the position is, we know that this is a problem the company is trying to solve. So if we can speak to it in terms of what they need, so for instance, a maintenance mechanic role, you would want to give examples that showcase and highlight your maintenance or mechanical background. For a sales position, you would talk about customer service, interacting with people, and problem solving. So do the job in the interview and express these skills and abilities you have along the way. As I look at at an interview, I give it the following grading criteria. So every company looking at you is thinking of three things: your skill set, background. You have to have that in order to be considered. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. This goes along with do the job in the interview. We give them examples of what we've done, how we're a good fit for what they need. The next piece is your passion or your energy for the opportunity. If you go in, you say, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. What do you have?" You may have a great skill set and background, but they're not excited to hire you. A person that's working for a paycheck that doesn't want to be there is not someone that's going to do any additional effort, any extra work. They're not exactly who we're looking for. The third piece, kind of going along with that passion, energy, excitement, is your personality. How well do you interact with other people? Are you bossy? Are you someone that is condescending, telling them, "You're dumb, you're an idiot, you're a jerk, do it my way"? Or are you friendly, outgoing, a team player, willing to stay late if you need to, come in on a weekend if it's required to get the job done? "Hey, I'll do whatever we need to do to cooperate to we cooperate to graduate." So make sure you can really showcase a strong, friendly, outgoing, positive personality. It's not something you typically can tell them, it's something you have to show them. Almost all interviews start with some variation of, "Tell me about yourself," or "Why do you think you should work here?" or "Why do you think we should hire you?" In my mind, these are all basically that same question. Give me a good overall feeling of who you are and what you bring to our organization. The tell me about yourself should roughly be 2 to 3 minutes. It should hit highlights of your career. We don't want to delve into tiny, minute areas. We'll hit the high notes and let the company ask about specifics later on. So you might say, originally from this city, this state, grew up, finished school, went to college or enlisted in this military branch, uh, did well in my tech school training, have grown and promoted throughout the ranks. Currently, I'm leading and managing this many people, doing this, doing that. You do want to brag on yourself throughout and showcase that it came about through hard work and hard effort. I was the #1 selected here. Again, worked extremely hard, made sure that everyone in the unit understood this and was, happy with that acknowledgement. I was then promoted to another role. I did this, I did that. Toward the end of your tell me about yourself, you want to then kind of wrap things up and pass the baton to the interviewer. I'm finishing up with my military service. I've really enjoyed it. But I'm very excited about the ABC company. I really think I'd be a great asset to your team, and I'm looking forward to exploring this opportunity with you further. So again, if it's tell me about yourself, tell me about a time, you can kind of work that. The tell me about a time could be used for other situations as well. So we won't do that as just an initial question too. Some of the time you may get a question where tell me about a time you had to make a decision with less than all the information. Tell me about a time you had to do something uncomfortable, like reprimanding someone that worked for you. In each of these situations, you'll want to stop, assess, and answer the question. So tell me about a time you had to reprimand someone. You'll want to think about, okay, what was, the overarching thing they did? We had to stop and instruct them on what they were doing, that it was unsafe. We did this to, ensure they didn't get hurt. We made sure to go back in and do instruction so they understood what they needed to do instead. And moving forward, we checked in with them to ensure that they were on the right track. This actually helped them. They've now become a stronger performer. They're teaching and training others, and it's been a value add for the unit. Find the positive, make sure you accentuate that. So anytime you can do that, just you can use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result, and just make sure you work through each of those different areas as you progress through the question. The do the job in the interview, we talked about it previous, but it is so important. You always want to make sure you keep that in mind with what they're asking. So tell me about a time you reprimanded someone that wasn't performing. If this job is a leadership supervision role, it's going to be very important to highlight and foot stomp the leadership and supervision you gave. If this is a technician role, you'll want to talk about your subject matter expertise, understanding the technical jargon and know-how so that you could best teach and train them, hold them accountable, and reiterate what needs to be done. So working through these things is going to be very important. I'll give you a quick tell me about yourself for me. That way you've got an additional example. So I'm originally from Anchorage, Alaska, born and raised. I did really well in high school, graduated top 10% of my class, went to college at Purdue University. There I joined the ROTC program to become an officer in the Air Force. Upon graduation, I got my choice of assignment going into space and missile operations. I went to California where I did my initial training, did well, again, graduated toward the top of my class, and was given my choice of assignment to go to Minot, North Dakota. I knew this would be a hard, challenging assignment, one that most people didn't want, and that was, for me, what set it apart. I really felt that I could be a big fish, small pond in that scenario. When I got there, I worked hard, I studied, I found mentors, and I quickly made a name for myself as someone that knew the information. Was then asked to take on a leadership role within my unit as an assistant flight commander, and also had an additional duty opportunity to go be an instructor. This is something reserved for the top 10% of missileers. After I did that, I had a chance to run our most complex program that we do, or program management operation, and that is what we do, code change. Was in charge of hundreds of moving parts, pieces, teams, and set up a plan and executed that beautifully. Finished my time in Minot. This also concluded my military obligations. I really enjoyed it, but for me, I wanted to see what else was out there, what else might be available, and to give my wife a chance to pursue her career. And at this point, I'm really excited about your company because I believe I can leverage the things I've learned, my leadership, my management, my hard work and work ethic to find great new roles with you. So again, find what you can do the job in the interview, and ensure that you have a nice, smooth transition, focusing on their problem and what you can do to help solve it. Common tough questions. This is an area that I think a lot of people really fear, that they're going to get one of these really tough questions and it's just going to torpedo the entire interview. The most important thing to think about as far as tough questions is to look at several tough questions and think about them beforehand so you don't get that deer in the headlight moment when it occurs. I'm going to go over 3 or 4 of what I feel are some of the toughest tough questions, and that'll hopefully help you as you craft different answers, think of different scenarios, and prepare for those. Tell me about a time you failed. What a rosy subject, right? What we want to do with this question is we find an example early in our career that we can then leverage and make ourselves a 2.0 kind of person. Let me give you an example. When I was at, so Brian, tell me about a time you failed. When I was at tech school, did well on my first initial test and thought, you know what, I can just kind of relax and coast. I'll enjoy sunny California before they send me off to North Dakota. This is great. Well, my very next test, I failed. And then my instructor told me at that point, oh, I forgot to mention, if you fail 2 tests, because this is 2004 and we're too heavily manned, we're probably going to kick you out of the Air Force because we have too many people. That was the wake-up call I needed, kind of that kick to the butt that really woke me up and got me focused. At that point on, I decided, you know what? I'm going to focus hard. I'm going to become a subject matter expert. I'm going to learn this information inside and out and be the guy that people come to when they have questions. Hit the books hard. I studied. I found more senior folks that knew what they were doing, mentors. And my next test and every test after that, I passed with flying colors to the point that I became that subject matter expert. People came to me because they knew I was a walking encyclopedia of this information. You know, we had a 300-page technical orders book, and I knew it. I knew it all. I was really good, have a photographic memory that way. But I took this failure and I leveraged that to future gains, future accomplishments. Where had I just continued to squeak by, I may not have had that motivation to really do this, and it opened up some great doors for me later. You need to show that to companies as well. This early failure made you, in my case, Brian 2.0, that helps them with new things. Let's move on. Tell me about the worst boss you've ever had. What again, a great question. You may be tempted to say, well, you know, Captain so-and-so, Colonel so-and-so was such an idiot. We don't want to do that. We always take the high road. If they think you may talk bad about a previous boss, what's going to keep them or keep you from talking about them if you work for them? So in this situation, what we want to do is we want to say something to the effect, I've had a lot of bosses, a lot of leaders and supervisors in my time in the military. I've had a lot to learn from each one of them. Some of them I feel had great leadership styles that I certainly try to emulate, such as getting to work early, having an open door as far as communication, not micromanaging, but empowering people to do great things, and then praising in public, reprimanding in private. I've had some others that I didn't care for that yelled at people and tried to make them, you know, seem less than they were and make their accomplishments, you know, less in the sight of others. But I've learned from all, and I know that everyone leads from their experience and kind of what their background is. I really believe you can learn something from everyone, and then now you pivot. In this position, what I would do is I would then use the characteristics that I've learned from the best bosses and avoid the things I've learned from those bosses I don't think had as much to contribute, and I believe I'd really be a positive attribute to your team. Again, do the pivot, show them how you're a solution for what they need. You need to address it, but we do so in a way that puts it on our terms. Next question. Tell me about your greatest weakness. This is a tough one in the sense we want to give them something because we need to answer the question, but we don't want to have it detrimental. One of my weaknesses, I have trouble waking up and I'm not a real reliable person that way. Oh boy, that's terrible. You know, no one wants to hear that. You could have a bit of a brown noser one where you say, well, one of my greatest weaknesses is that I'm a perfectionist. It's hard for me to move on from one project to another. I really just throw everything into it. And in some cases, I spend too much time on one thing than another. That might still be okay, but like I say, a little bit of that perfectionist. Think about an area that you can highlight that doesn't hurt you in this role. Again, if it's a sales role, you know, your weakness can't be talking to people and interacting with people because that's what you need to do. It could be a weakness if you were an engineer and you'd say, I'm working on, you know, more interaction, being more comfortable, confident, and you know, I've done Toastmasters and it's showing some great progress. So Find a weakness that you have that you're working on, use that and show how you're continuing to grow through it, but just make sure it's not detrimental to that position. Okay, next question. Answering a question positively when you don't have the background they're looking for. I like this one, and this is one you can put in your tool belt if you get a similar question. So let's say the interviewer asks you, Brian, do you have your Lean Six Sigma black belt certification? Well, no, I don't. But if I tell them, no, I don't, it's the end of the question, it's the end of the answer, we move on, and, I feel like swing and a miss, there's a strike. That's one thing against me. When I get a question like this, I like to dig in and look at what they're looking for. Six Sigma in this case is process improvement. Who in the military doesn't have process improvement experience? We all do. So with this question, I would answer it this way. While I don't have a Lean Six Sigma black belt, I do have a lot of experience with process improvement. In my time in the Air Force, we did a lot of inspections, after-action reviews. We did discussions. We implemented best practices. We shared what we felt were the best practices across the unit, across the entire Air Force, and those were then, the new practices that we all tried to implement and utilize. So I do have a lot of experience looking at, evaluating, assessing, and improving upon programs and processes. And if this is an important certification, I'd be happy to go back and get it if it'll help me with my employment here at the ABC company. So again, always talk to what you do have, showcase what you bring to the table, show that this is something that would be valuable to the company, and then speak to, if it's important, I'd be happy to go get it to help with my position here. At this point of the interviewer typically asks you what questions you have for them. I like to relate an interview with a date. If you can imagine you're on a first date and you're the guy, the interviewer is the girl, and she's been asking you all sorts of things, she's trying to get to know you, and then she says, okay, Brian, what questions do you have for me? You always have to have some questions. Can you imagine how well it would go, or how badly it would go, if you said, oh, actually, I don't have any questions for you. I checked out your Facebook page, your LinkedIn page, and I think I know everything I need to. Thank you. That date is over, and same thing, that interview, that job prospect is gone. We always have questions. Questions show our interest. Some of the questions I want you to ask the interviewer fall into different categories. Find a question, number one, that relates to their background to emphasize their subject matter expertise. What I mean about this, if you're talking to the plant manager, your question is going to be different than if you're talking to HR. It's going to be different than if you're talking to someone in sales. I use one here for HR, for instance. If you're talking to HR, maybe mention, hey, you've been the hiring manager for 8 years. You've hired some of the best people in the company. They've been here for quite a long time. What do you feel are some of the best attributes that these most successful people have had, or that you look for in new hires? This might give you an idea of what they're looking for, what is successful, and along the way, you're giving them a pat on the back. Hey, you're the expert. You're really good at this. So find a way to do that in an honest and sincere way. If you don't mean it, don't pay the compliment. It doesn't work out. I always like to have the ask about growth promotion question, but I believe there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. Here's the wrong way. What are the growth opportunities available in this position? I feel it's the wrong way because it doesn't say anything about what you're going to do for the company. The right way is more like this. I'm looking at getting into this position, learning everything I can, demonstrating that I'm ready to take on more roles, more responsibilities, greater challenges. As I do that, what are the growth promotion opportunities available, and how can I kind of help you in solving some of your bigger problems down the road? Again, show how you are a solution to their problem, how you're going to help them, not how they're going to help you. Another one that I like to use, this is the third one there, is what I refer to as engage the dreamer. What I think is kind of fun with this, there's some psychology. When people have pleasant thoughts and think about good things, they sometimes associate that with who they're around. This is the same way we do the ambush approach at the beginning to get that energy and excitement into the interview. So for instance, engaging the dreamer. If your budget was twice as big as it is now, what would you do? What kind of equipment would you buy? What kind of automation would you institute? What would change? And really for them, they should start going, oh man, boy, if we had twice the money, if we could do this, we could do that. It's just, again, a kind of a fun, happy place for them. You can also maybe see what their strategy is and what they want to get out of this company and where they want to go, which may help you help solve their problems. If you can help solve their problems, you are going to be someone that is very valuable to them, and they're going to keep growing you, promoting you, so you can continue to help them along the way. In any case, find a question that shows interest, that shows what you could do to solve their problems, and that's probably a pretty good one to ask. Okay, we've made it to the end of the interview. Beginning, they did the tell me about yourself. Then they asked you questions about your background, your experience. Then they asked you about, what questions do you have for them. Finally, they're wrapping things up. You're going to know this when they say something like, well, that's all the questions I have, or I've got to run to another appointment. It was great talking to you, or, any final questions before we wrap up? You'll know when they're closing the interview. This is your clue to kind of do that final wrap up. I like to think of closing the interview as closing a date. So let's pretend you're on a date. You went to see a movie. You went and had a nice dinner. You had a nice conversation. Now you're walking the girl to her house, and you need to kind of close the date out. You can say, "Well, see you later," and leave, and you're probably never going to hear from that girl again because she'll go, "Whoa, this guy wasn't interested in me at all." Or you could say, "Hey, I had a really good time. I think we're great together. Would like to see you again. When are you free to get together for another date?" You always want to ask for that next interview and kind of see how it went. So same thing as at a date. Step one, thank the interviewer for their time. "Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I really enjoyed our conversation." Step two, "I really feel I'd be a great fit for the ABC company based on my education, my experience in the military, leading, managing teams, doing maintenance work. That's exactly what I've done." Again, do the job in the interview. Find out what it is that they have a problem with and be the solution. I'm looking forward to following up on the interview. What would the next step of this process be? Would I come out and meet the team next, or would we start discussing start dates and compensation? Please let me know, as I'm very excited and I really believe I'd be a great addition to the ABC company. Thank you so much. So again, making sure that you showcase this is something you want to do, you're excited about it, and you're ready for the job. Do that and things should go well. Okay, this concludes the interview success preparation training. I hope you got a lot out of it. This is, of course, to supplement additional training that you might do through modules, through other online resources. But if you stick to some of these highlights, I think you'll be much more comfortable, much more confident in your interview, and I believe things will go very smoothly. Best of luck to you.